Good evening. Welcome to the Masterclass. It's Saturday and we are back at 5:30 p.m. Last week, we were discussing how problem behavior happens in a class. If you take the takeaways from the last session, it said that in a class, problem behavior happens in stages, where first a student just demands attention. And when the attention doesn't come, the student will do an act which will compel the teacher to give an attention. If attention still does not come, then there are other ways and means the student behaves to get the teacher's attention. So essentially, it's a love starved feeling. And you have to talk about a good child and honor student behavior. We discussed about noise in the classroom, why it happens and how it is overcome, what is the provocation, how teachers supposed to handle it, the cycle of handling this, how much you can do, and when a situation goes out of control, you should seek some help. So today we will read Violence in the Name of Communication. So where do we begin? All right. Let's suppose that a violent fight breaks out between two students in your classroom. A quarrel over something trivial has developed into a full-scale fist fight. What would you do with them? So, Subham, Vishakha, this happens in your school where students end up fighting after a quarrel. Let us see why this violence happens and how we can sort it out. So youth is a teacher and he has gone to the philosopher or a counselor, as you want to call, to seek help. In that sort of situation, I would not rebuke them loudly or anything like that. Rather, I'd calmly listen to what both sides had to say. I'd get them to cool down first and then ask them things like, why did you start fighting? Why were you hitting each other? How do you think they would answer? Well, I guess it'd be something like, he said such and such, and I just blew up, and he did this horrible thing to me. Then what would you do? I let them both behave their way, ascertain which student was in the wrong, and then get the one to apologize. However, since all disputes, it's really both sides that are in the wrong, I'd actually be getting them to apologize to each other. Very interesting. So, fight happens when two sides want to fight. So, similarly, when both sides are on the wrong, then so often we should ask both to apologize. It's a very fair way of closing the challenges. Would that be satisfied then? Would they be satisfied with that? Naturally, they'd both prefer to stick to their versions of what happened. But if both of them are able to think, maybe it's partly my fault, I would let it go at that. There's that saying, in a quarrel, both parties are to blame. I see. Now suppose you had the triangular column with you. So I explained you the triangular column. It's like you have a ruler. So if you take a triangular column, you can only see, if you look at it in a particular way, you'll see it a straight line. But there's the hidden corner behind it. So now you're seeing the face of the triangular column here. Yes, on one face are written the words, that bad person. And on another, poor me. And on the last one, what should I do from now? Listen to your students while visualizing the triangular column, much in the same way as we counselors do. What do you mean? The student's reason for fighting, he said such and such, and he did this horrible thing to me. When you think about them with the triangular column, isn't it just the same? That bad person and poor me. So a bad person does something to one person and the person is the poor me. And most fights are like that. One is the bad person, one is the poor me. जो मार खाता है, that is poor me. जो मारता है, that is a bad person. Yes, I guess so. You are asking the students only about the cause. No matter how much you might delve into that, all you will going to get is excuses and abdications of responsibility. It's a difficult word, abdication. Abdication means no one takes responsibility, everyone gives up. And you get excuses from both sides. I hit him because he did this, he hit me because he did this, and the argument goes on. What should he be doing is focusing on their goals and thinking with them. What should I do from now on? The goal of the fight, not the cause. Let's figure out step by step. First of all, we humans usually communicate through language, right? Yes, like we are talking to each other right now. Then, what would you say is the goal or objective of communication? I'd say it's transmission of intention, the conveying of what is in one's mind. This is very interesting. When you want to talk, you want to convey what is in your mind. And that is the reason of transmitting your intention. What is inside you, you take outside with the help of talking, action, behavior. No, conveying is nothing more than the gateway of communication. The final objective is establishment of consensus. Conveying does not have meaning on its own. It's only when the content of what is conveyed has been understood and a certain consensus has been reached that communication has meaning. So we are talking together in this way with the aim of getting to some point of consensus. So we are trying both people to come to some kind of resolution and understanding. That is consensus. Okay, but it's sure taking a long time, right? Language based communication necessitates a great deal of time and effort to arrive at consensus. You have to talk a lot to come to a common point. One doesn't just get in one's own egoistical demands accepted. Rather, one has to collect persuasive material such as objective data. Moreover, in terms of certainty and immediate effectiveness, it is rather poor for the costs incurred. It's exactly as you say, it gets tiresome. What does the person who is finding a discussion tiresome or feeling that they have no choice of winning this discussion do at that point? Do you know? So, every discussion, every conversation, it is presumed will reach a particular point. Now, when it doesn't, then how do you know if that point has arrived? How do we know that Shubham and Vishakha have together talked and reached a point of communication, a point of understanding, a point of learning? So, this is the basic challenge we face as to at one point in a communication, when we have reached that point of balance, well, I suppose they wouldn't just bow out, would they? So, no one will give up. The means of communication they will choose in the end is violence. So when no one gives up, they end up fighting. Haha, that's great. That's where you make the connection. By resorting to violence, one can push through one's demands without expending time or effort. To put it more directly, one can make the other party submit to one. In every way, violence is a low cost, easy meaning of communication. But before demeaning it morally unacceptable, we must say that it is rather immature form of conduct for people to engage in. So what we are saying, violence doesn't get you anywhere. So I've been reading a lot about India's freedom struggle, and of late I have been reading of the period from 1900 to 1919, the World War One years, and how there was so much violence in India. The British and the Indian people were not engaging, but the war compelled them to engage. And war changed the thing in such a way that they had to engage. Despite the fact it was morally unacceptable for the Indian side to take a softer stance, it still engaged. So that's much of a challenge. There is an engagement. You mean that it should not be rejected from a moral viewpoint, but rather because it is immature, foolish conduct? Yes, moral standards change with each time period or situation. Judging others solely on moral guidelines is extremely dangerous. After all, there have been times when violence is promoted. Now, what should one do? We humans have to get back to the basics. We must grow out of our immature condition. We must not rely on immature communication, that is violence. We have to search for other kinds of communication. It does not matter what the cause of violence may be, whether it is the thing the other person said or their provocative attitude or what you have. Violence has one goal. What we should be thinking about is what should I do from now on? Vishaka, can I take a pause and talk to you?
Yes, sir.
So, Vishaka, in your school, you see two people fighting.
Yes, sir.
What will you do to control that if you were there as a friend or as a passerby or as a teacher? How do you think you can overcome a situation that they stop fighting? What will you do?
Sir, can you tell me again? I didn't listen.
Yeah, you are in a place in your school and there are two people who are fighting. Why they are fighting? Because they have a different thought, they think differently. How do you think you can help to stop the fight? What do you think you can do so that they don't fight, they don't hurt each other? How can you make them talk to each other? How can you make them come to an understanding? Shubham, would you like to interject?
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Shubham, would you like to add something?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, sir, when two students are fighting either in the class or in the corridor somewhere in the school, so generally, first of all, they should be taken some separately, like in the room of the coordinator or in the room of any authority, because in the class they will just start boasting of their kind of they will not be surrendering actually because they can dare to fight in the public but they cannot dare to apologize in the public. So first of all they should be taken separately somewhere, and a proper you can say inquiry should be done over there. And after when we have found the solution, they should be taken back to the class, and then they should be asked to apologize in the class, because they not only have hit each other's body, they also have defamed the, you can say, discipline of the school, because now it has become the news of the day. Now the students will be reaching home, they will be sharing this with their parents. Now it will be impacting the image of the school. So they not only have hit each other, they also have done this kind of things. So I think that solution, after getting the solution, okay, who is the culprit, okay, and who is responsible for this, that's the another thing. But after that there should be a kind of punishment that they should be regretting for taking the last step means being violent in the school is the last thing that is not acceptable actually, that I would like to say.
Yeah,
So
thank
they
you.
should be
Yeah,
okay, okay, sure.
I want to stop you here and reach a stage. You talked of punishment.
Yes, sir.
Now, as we go along, you will realize that punishment is not the answer. So I'm going to take your reflection here and read on and then get you in later.
Okay, sure.
That's an interesting insight with regard to violence. So that is my answer to what you just said. Can you really act as if this were just someone else's business? What am I talking about can be applied to you too? No way. I don't engage in violence. Stop making strange acquisitions. So here we come to an answer. Getting angry and rebuking are synonymous. You are in a discussion with someone when things take a bad turn. You are in a disadvantageous position, or you are aware from the start of the discussion that your arguments lack rationality. Take, for example, the man who tries to push his arguments at such times, not with actual violence perhaps, but through attempting to coerce the other party. Coerce means push the other party by raising his voice, slapping his hand on the table, or shedding tears. These kinds of conduct too must be regarded as low cost, violent communication. You understand that what I am saying. You understand what I am saying. Yes. You are damn insect. You just because I'm getting excited and raising my voice, you ridicule me by calling me an immature person. No, I really don't mind at all how much you raise your voice here. The issue I'm bringing up is the essence of the rebuking conduct that you are choosing. So when Shubham talks of punishing, it's what rebuking is punishment, punishing only. You feel annoyed by having to communicate with your students with words, and you are rebuking them to try to force them into quick submission, using anger as weapon, wielding guns of reproach, brandishing the sword of authority. This is an immature and foolish attitude for an educator to have. No, I'm not angry at them. I'm rebuking them. Many adults justify it this way, but it does not change the fact that they're trying to keep another person down by using violent force. Indeed, one might even say it is a vicious excuse as it contains the awareness of those adults who tell themselves, I am doing a good thing. Youth, that's not how it is. Look, anger is an explosion of emotion. When one cannot make calm judgments, this is what I mean. When I rebuke them, I don't get emotional at all. Instead of getting bent out of shape, I rebuke them in a calm and calculated manner. That's a point to note. I rebuke them in a calm and calculated manner. Don't group me with people who forget themselves and fly into rage. So the teacher, the youth is justifying his method of rebuking. Or maybe that is how it is. You might say you are like a gun loaded with blanks, but there is no difference from the standpoint of the students. They have a gun pointing at them. Whether it is loaded with real bullets or not, you are communicating with a gun in your hand. That's what happens when you fire someone with words. Okay, let's try this. Suppose the other person is some kind of brutal criminal who's holed up with a knife. He's committed a crime and is challenging you to battle. One of those battles for attention drawing or struggles for power or what you have. What's wrong with communication with a gun in your hand? How else do we maintain law and order? So he says, someone is showing you a knife, won't you show a gun? So philosopher. What should parents and educators do when confronted with problem behavior in children? Adler advises that we renounce the standpoint of the judge. Look what Adler advises: renounce the standpoint of the judge. You have not been granted the privilege of passing down judgments. Maintaining law and order is not your job. Then what are you telling me to do? Rather than being concerned with law and order, what you should be doing is protecting the child right in front of you. The child who is engaged in problem behavior. Educators are counselors, and counseling is re education. Gurdeep, this is brilliant. Educators are counselors, and counseling is re education. Would you like to note this down, Gurdeep? We spoke about this earlier, didn't we? It would be peculiar for a counselor to take out a gun or anything like that. Youth, but still, philosopher. Violence, which includes reprimand, is a form of communication that reveals one's immaturity as a human being. This is something that the children know well enough themselves. Whenever they receive reprimands, whenever they are punished, in addition to their fear of violent conduct, at an unconscious level, they have the insight that this is an immature person. So, जब आप किसी को punish करते हो, when you reprimand someone, you do it with authority. And the person who receives your authority feels that I am immature, which is but natural. You have a young person and you are a senior experienced person. This is a much bigger problem than the adults think. Could you respect an immature human being? And could you have a real feeling of being respected by someone who threatens you in a violent manner? There is no respect in communication with anger and violence. Rather, such communication invites contempt. That reprimand does not lead to substantiative improvement is a self evident truth. On this point, Adler states anger is an emotion that pulls people apart. How beautiful. Anger is an emotion that pulls people apart. I think this is the quote for the day. Gurdeep, are you still here?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yeah. So, anger is an emotion that pulls people apart. What a simple sentence and how powerful it is.
Yes, like in any relationship, whether it's a teacher,
Absolutely.
student, 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 any relationship, I think
Anyway,
this
I
holds
think
true.
it's a brilliant, brilliant statement. If you think of it, I think Gurdeep, you need to write a reflection point on this.
Yes, sir, sure.
That's why I called on you. This is a brilliant way, and I think this is the whole crux of courage to be happy. If you think of it, if you can overcome this emotion of anger, you would be happy.
And the point is, like in school, like different stakeholders are there. Like we deal with parent, as a teacher, we deal with student. Like anger doesn't work. This, like I feel, it doesn't work at all. Like Adler is saying in this, the focus should be on what should we do from now on, rather than that poor me or bad person we always talk about.
Read the power of now.
Yes.
So, Shubham, pay attention. I am
Yes,
not
sir. Yes, sir.
respected by my students, and moreover, they feel contempt for me because of my rebuking them. The example Shubham gave was brilliant. He would take the students separately and then he would come back together with them. It's like a boxing match, when boxing happens, in the end, referee holds both the hands
Yes,
and
sir.
says, okay, this guy made the winner, but he'll hold both the hands when the fight stops. So, something like that. You come back with your students to the class after you've listened to both of them. And like you so beautifully said, it may be a good idea they both apologize to each other. That's fair, absolutely. Unfortunately, that is probably the case. What do you know anyway? You don't understand what is like a real setting. So, philosophers getting pushed by the youth, you are a philosopher only. There are probably many things I do not understand. However, this real setting that you keep bringing up is basically another version of that bad person and poor me, who is at their mercy. I do not imagine there to be any more values in those words beyond what is necessary. It will all just go one ear and out the other. Ah, if you have gained the courage to face yourself and consider the true meaning of what should I do from now on, you will make progress, Gurdeep. Brilliant. You are one of my finest students as
Thank you.
a
Thank you.
philosopher. So you are saying that I am just setting up excuses. No, excuse is probably not the correct word. You're simply focusing on only the things one cannot change and lamenting. So it's impossible. Instead of clinging to the things one cannot change, look at the things one can change that are right in front of you, the power of now. Do you remember the serenity prayer that has been passed down orally in Christian society? Yes, of course I do. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom always to tell the difference. So the courage to be happy is coming on slowly. Reflect upon these words and then think once more about what should I do from now on. One can choose one's own life. Okay, suppose I were to accept your suggestion. I refrain from rebuking, stop inquiring as to the causes of their behavior, and ask the students, what should you do from now on? What would be the result? I don't even have to think about it. All I would get be lip service statements of self reflection like, I won't do it again, or I'll do things correctly from now on. Whenever words of self reflection are forced, nothing will come out of it. That is to be expected. People are often made to write essays of apology or self reflection. But these writings are written only with the goal of being forgiven and never lead to any self reflection. It is unlikely that they become anything more than objectives of self satisfaction for the person who had them written. But be that as it may be, what I would question here is that person's way of living. Way of living, to paraphrase Kant, not Kant, sorry, because it's with K. If it be Kant, it will be with C. So, to paraphrase Kant, whose discussion of self reliance is pertinent here. Man's juvenile condition is not due to lack of reason. So, juvenile means acting childish. Man behaves in a childish manner not due to lack of reason. It is that he has neither the resolution nor the courage to use his reason without direction from another. This is to say, man is responsible for being stuck in his own juvenile condition. So you create your own now. And juvenile condition, now youth asking the next question. Yes, it is the condition of not attaining true self reliance. One may understand Kant's use of the word reason as referring to ability in general and to include everything from intelligence to sensibility. Youth, it is not that we lack ability, but what we don't have enough courage to use our ability. And that's why we cannot get past our juvenile condition. That's right. And then Kant declares, have courage to use your own reason. This is brilliant. So if you are at in the power of now, this is the challenge. Have the courage to use your own reason. Oh, that's like Adler, isn't it? Now, why do people try to keep themselves in a juvenile condition? Why do we keep acting childish? Or, to put it more plainly, why do people reject self reliance? What is your view? It is because of cowardice. Cowardice, being afraid. It may be in some cases, but consider Kant's words once more. It is easier to live according to direction from another. One does not have to think about difficult things, and one does not have to take responsibility for failure. So, being a follower is always easy. All one has to do is swear a certain allegiance, and someone will take care of all one's troublesome tasks. So, just align yourself with someone and just follow them. From children in families and schools to members of society, working at companies and government offices to clients who come for counseling, isn't it so? So we are always looking for direction and follow the leader. Well, I guess so. Moreover, in order to keep children in a juvenile condition, the adults around them use every conceivable means to indoctrinate children regarding the danger and risk and scariness of self reliance. So you don't want your children to grow up and do things on their own. What for? To keep them under control. So whole purpose of schooling is to keep children under control. Why would they do such a thing? This is probably something you should think over carefully and ask yourself. Because without noticing it, you too are getting in the way of your students' self-reliance. So if you hold your child's hand too much, the child will not learn to walk on its own. Youth, I am. Yes, make no mistake about this. No matter what they do, parents and then educators engage in excessive meddling and nurturing of their children. As a result, they end up raising children who cannot decide anything on their own and who need constant direction from others. They raise people who will always have children's minds and who will be incapable of doing things without direction from others, even if they are adults in terms of age. This is not self reliance in any shape or form. No way. At the very least, I'm hoping that my students will become self reliant. Why would I be actually hindering them? Don't you see? You are afraid of letting them become self reliant. So, this is another point. You are afraid of letting them become self reliant. What? How's that? If your students become self reliant and they assume a standpoint on equal footing to you, your authority will collapse. Right now, you are erecting a vertical relationship with your students and you are afraid of that relationship collapsing. This is a fear held subconsciously not only by educators but by many parents as well. So, even in work, it's very difficult if you're a senior person or a leader to let go. And you end up doing so much of tasks which you should not be doing because you don't give space to others. So you have to give space. That is an important lesson of horizontal learning, of peer learning. Vertical, top down, good old method of rote learning hasn't got us anywhere. Collaboration, communication, critical thinking all require that we give space. No, I don't, youth says. One other thing, when children fail, and especially when they disturb others, it is only natural that you too are held responsible. It is your responsibility as an educator and as a supervisor. And if you are a parent, it is your responsibility as a parent. Do you see? Yes, of course. What can one do to evade that responsibility? The answer is easy: control the children. One allows the children to take only those paths that are safe and free from harm without permitting any adventure. One keeps them under one's control as much as possible. One does not do this out of concern for children. It is all for one's own self protection. Youth. Because one doesn't want to be held responsible for children's failures, for the children's failures. That is how it goes. And this is precisely why people in positions in education and leaders charged with the management of organizations as well must always uphold the objective of self reliance. This is the key. And I have had the privilege of studying in a boarding school where twice a year they would just send three, four of us into wilderness to walk together. We used to have hikes where they just send us as four, five boys together as long as we were physically able, without supervision, without master in charge. Not that they didn't care for us, not that they did not give us a safety net. They wanted us to find our way. And if you see whether it's in the bird's nest, where the bird has to fly one day, or with any living being, or for that matter of fact, even tender plants, ultimately the trunks have to become hard to hold them up. That's self reliance. Youth. So you're not to get carried away with self protection. So youth says that the self protection is carried away. It is the same thing with counseling. When we give counseling, we are always very careful not to put the client in a position of dependence and irresponsibility. Counseling that allows the client to say, thanks to you, I'm all better, is not solving anything. Because, put another way, what they're really saying is, I can't do anything by myself. How interesting. It's the reflection, how you look at it. They are dependent on the counselor. Philosopher, right. And the same thing can be said about you, that is to say, about educators. Educators who let their students say things like, thanks to you, I was able to graduate, or thanks to you, I was able to pass my exams, are failing to provide education in the truest sense of the word. It is necessary to have the students gain the awareness that they can accomplish things under their own power. But an educator is a lonely creature. Once students all finish school under their own power and one isn't praised or appreciated for one's effort, one does not without receiving gratitude. So one accepts that loneliness. Yes, rather than expecting gratitude from students, one has the feeling of contribution that one has been able to contribute to the grand objective of self reliance. One finds happiness in the feeling of contribution. That is the only way. How nice to make a teacher feel rewarded. The feeling of contribution. As I surely said to you 3 years ago, the essence of happiness is the feeling of contribution. If you are hoping to receive gratitude from students, if it's thanks to you that are words you are waiting to hear, then please know that, in effect, you are standing in the way of their self reliance. Then, concretely speaking, in what way can one provide an education that does not put children in positions of dependence or irresponsibility? In what way can one aid in real self reliance? You have to show me concrete examples, not concepts. Otherwise, I can't accept this. So, a young person or a student or any bhakt and chela relationship, the confidence of the bhakt or the chela only happens when they see proof. And that's the beauty of this whole relationship. So, let us see what the philosopher says. All right, suppose a child asks, can I go and play at my friend's place? I'm sure some of you ask, and I'm sure the teacher here has to answer to that. There are parents who will grant permission. Of course, you can, and then set the condition. Once you are done your homework, and there are others who will simply prohibit their children from going out to play. Both are forms of conduct and put the child in position of dependence and irresponsibility. Instead, teach the child by saying, that is something you can decide on your own. So, Khushi, does your mom let you do that? That is
Actually,
self.
every time, sir.
Oh, brilliant. You are lucky then. Teach that one's own life and one's own everyday actions are things that one determines oneself. So, this is the important turning point. And if deciding things requires ingredients, knowledge and experience, for example, then provide them. That is how educators should be. So, this is exactly what we are doing here at the moment. We are just providing you knowledge and experience. We are not there to stop you from doing anything. We are not there to push you to do anything. But we are only sharing knowledge and experience with you, but the decision lies in your hands. This is the beauty of our way of schooling and what you get to see in your school. Decide on your own. Do they have the capacity for judgment? So youth ask a question. Can everyone do the judgment? If you doubt that, then you do not have enough respect for them. So if I don't respect you, obviously I'll doubt you. If you have real respect for them, then you should be able to let them decide everything on their own. Youth. And what if that leads to irreparable mistake? It is no different with paths that are chosen for them by their parents and teachers. How can you say for sure that their choices are always end in failure, while the paths they are directed to will not? But that's when children make mistakes, your responsibility is called into question. But that is not the kind of responsibility that one would stake one's life on. Responsibility, in the true sense of word, is something that only that person can make themselves take. Then you should be able to let them decide everything on their own. And what if that leads to irreparable mistake? So this is an important point, and I'm emphasizing this. You always have this sense of danger lurking. Mistake हो जाएगा. And that itself is the method which holds you from growing. So then the philosopher says when children make mistakes, your responsibility is called into question, which means the teacher will be called for the actions taken in the class. And that makes the teacher afraid, and the teacher doesn't get the ability to let students do what they want and take decisions. But this is not the kind of responsibility that one would stake one's life on. You have to give me the chance of being responsible. Responsibility in the true sense of word is something that only that person can make themselves take. This is what has led to the idea of separation of tasks. So now we are talking of separation of tasks. The idea, in other words, that says who ultimately is going to receive the end result brought about by the choice that is made. So everyone has to make a choice. You, who are not in a position of receiving the final responsibility, must not intervene in others' tasks. So, the person who does the task should have the freedom. So, if you have to teach in a class and you are told what to teach, you will not be able to be yourself. But if you are sent to a class and said, this is what the class should learn, the method you use should be yours. That's the whole idea behind this. You are saying to just leave the children alone? No, I'm not. I'm saying to have regard for the children's decisions and to help them in those decisions and to convey to them that you're always ready to help them and to watch over them at a distance from which you can help them and which is not too close. Should those decisions end in failure, children will learn from you the truth that one can choose one's own life. One can choose one's own life. Hey, one can choose one's own life. This is the main overreaching theme of our discussion today. So please be sure to remember it well. Yes, write it down in your notebook. Write it down in your notebook. One can choose one's own life. Now, let's take a little break at this juncture. Please reflect on the attitude you have taken when approaching your students. No way, I don't need to break up or anything. Let's keep it at that. The dialogue from this point onwards is going to require even more concentration. And concentration requires taking proper breaks. I'm going to fix a hot coffee. So it would be a good time for you to calm down a bit and sort things out. That's the coffee break. We will start part 3 next time. I'll add a bookmark here. I'm so delighted you were all here this evening. If you have any questions to ask, please ask me. The bookmark is added there. Bookmark. So next time we meet will be Saturday, 4th April, right? So your bookmark is in your community. We will go on from here next time. It's been a wonderful evening of reading. I have actually enjoyed every bit of it. I hope you have. I'm not sure whether all of you enjoyed or not. Over to you if someone wants to say anything. I'm working on the key takeaways and other things from this session.
Uh,
Anyone want? Yeah,
I would
Shubham.
like to say something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this session because the time I was just listening to you, I was just comparing the current days of my teaching with my the days of reading when I was a student of class 9th and 10th in 2002 and 3 back. So I was just comparing uh, whether the method of tackling the students has changed, because in some of the schools I still hear the teachers talking why corporal punishment has been banned. ठीक है ना, these students need kind of treatment कि इन्हें punish तो किया जाना चाहिए मतलब. So I was just comparing कि during our time the teachers used to punish us, मतलब जो ना वो कभी कभी थोड़ा सा वो violent हो जाया करते थे. Slapping was very common. ठीक है ना, एंड वही मुर्गा वगैरह बनाना मतलब आउटसाइड द क्लास. सो दैट वाज द वे, मतलब कि जो ना, बट द स्टूडेंट्स नेवर लेफ्ट डिसरेस्पेक्टिंग देयर टीचर्स. वो हमेशा रेस्पेक्ट करते थे अपने टीचर्स का. बट टुडे we do not have any authority to touch the students, to rebuke them, to even send them out of the class. But still जो ना इतना सब कुछ करने के बावजूद we get the result कि some of the times the students will be just मतलब they have so many nicknames for us, मतलब कुछ ना कुछ वो कहते रहेंगे. So this is a general discussion among the teachers whether the corporal punishment should be banned or it should be implemented again.
Yeah. So actually, it's not a discussion. It's the teacher pushing their authority. So when there is respect, authority is not required. See, when there are two people who can look into their eyes and share love, there is no difference. It's a horizontal relationship. So we were young, we took the punishment in lighter jest. हम तो खिलते खिलते कर देते थे. यार मुर्गा बन जाओ, we used to laugh it off and make it. So the times were different. Then the relationships were different. They weren't so transactional. So why we are reading this book today in current times is actually because the spirit of relationship has changed. We have moved from understanding to transaction. And earlier on, we were brought up in families with large number of people.
Yeah.
Today, we are not brought up with families with large number of people. We have become very small knit families. So we don't know how to respect and live with each other. So times have changed. And that is reflecting in your classroom. And that is reflecting in the teacher losing authority because the young person you have to address has been brought up without the ability to respect everyone's opinion. So if you are in a joint family or a large family, you do respect everyone's opinion, and that is the difference. Thank you, Shubham. Beautiful conversation.
Yeah.
It's been a
Yeah. Thank you,
wonderful
sir.
session. Thank you, Khushi. Love you, Lords. God bless you. Thank you,
Yes, you
Vishal.
too.
I hope you take something along from today. And Manisha, thank you so much. You're always so kind,
Mhm.
support, and words. Anything you want to add before I close, Manisha?
No, thank you, sir. I'm actually waiting eagerly for tomorrow's session with Yes program with Karthik, sir. So I invite and I request everyone to join tomorrow.
Yes. Please join my good school. And you will notice on the website schooleducation.com, we've added some more strength and power to highlight Manisha's My Good School. I call it MMGS, Manisha's My Good School. So please go to
Gratitude,
Manisha's
sir.
My Good School and you will come back happier, I assure you. And in that My Good School, there is no power struggle. We are all equals because we read together, we reflect together, and we build relationships. So, on the power of relationships, there is no space for lack of respect. And that's a powerful relationship. On that note, thank you. God bless you all. Bye bye.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes,
Sir, I have a question that how does the author relate communication to happiness and how can we avoid using communication as a form?
brilliant. So, you've asked how we can communicate happiness and how we can avoid violence. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Very simple. I will put it in very simple example. When you don't have control of certain things, please accept them. And that is the best way to avoid violence. So when the iron is hot, don't touch it. You have to wait for the iron to cool. Then only you can pick it up. So to avoid violence, one way is to have patience. And to live in a non-violent world, not to rebuke, not to fight, it's not easy. Why? It comes with deep understanding. So what the author says that your understanding should be such that violent behavior does not happen. I know this is philosophy, but the reality of the matter of fact is that understanding only comes with experience, and this is how we are moving. I'm not sure whether I'll ever be able to answer your question because your question was very, very powerful, but I have given you my opinion. Thank you for asking. Thank you. Please share your thoughts if you would like to in your WhatsApp group. We'd be happy to respond to them. We've gone well beyond time. Thank you so much. I'm always happy to be with you. Have a great evening. And yes, don't forget to join Manisha at My Good School tomorrow. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, Khushi.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, Vishakha.